That's right, ladies and gentlemen. So, exclusive to Deadline, this is the exclusive I was referencing, is this. Destin Daniel Cretton departs as director of Avengers the Kang Dynasty, allegedly remains aboard Wonder Man, Shang-Chi 2, and in talks to direct more stuff in the MCU. Don't know how much I believe that at this point in time, simply because that remains to be seen. There was rumors that Wonder Man was going to be cancelled. We don't know if it is or it hasn't yet. It's odd timing that he's departed ways and they've booted off the writer and replaced the writer as well. It just seems a little bit suspect. And also, the other important thing to note is this is an exclusive to Deadline, and this, with everything that's been said in this, which we'll cover in a second, this was given to Deadline by Marvel.
Yeah.
And let me take a look. I'll show you. I'll back it up, right? So Deadline hears that filmmaker Destin Daniel Cretton has decided to step away as director of Marvel Studios' Avengers Kang Dynasty to focus on his other Marvel projects. This is an amicable exit, I understand, as Cretton remains fully in the Marvel Studios family. In fact, Cretton is in talks with Marvel Studios about directing future movies. No statement of what they are, but fine. Note that Avengers Kang Dynasty is far on the theatrical release schedule, so why wouldn't he be able to do it then? Basically, it's May 1st, 2026. So Creighton is currently busy on all of this stuff: Wonder Man, Shang-Chi 2, etc., etc., etc. And then this is the weird stuff that we scroll down, and then they just say this. Just this whole article about Destin Daniel Cretton, and then right at the end, Marvel Studios have delivered 30 billion at the global box office from 33 titles. What is that relevant to anything in this article? It's not. Why was this put in? This is a puff piece from Marvel. Why did they add this?
Yeah, why don't
it's not relevant to anything?
Why don't they put Marvel Studios have delivered and then put the number from the last 3 years?
But isn't it weird? What a weird thing just to throw in at the end.
Yeah.
It's not
but we all know why.
Well, it's SEO. It's to give them a boost when people Google Marvel Studios and stuff, or they come across this article. Oh, they did. Oh, wow, impressive.
I think it's simpler than that.
Fucking weird.
I think it's so that people will see before commenting, because now they know. They know that they have kind of like lost it, and everyone now sees them as the loser of Hollywood. So they need to remind people, guys, before you tear us apart in the comments over this thing right here, because this is an admission that we failed with Kang. Just remember, this is how much we have earned back when we had Ike Perlmutter and the Marvel Creative Committee overseeing Kevin Feige. That's how much money we used to make. Now we don't have him anymore. We don't have the committee anymore. We just have Feige, and Feige unbound. Now it's all gone to hell. They don't say that, but that's what they should say. It just drives me nuts how they've rewritten history. And there's so many people that still believe that Kevin Feige is the savior of Marvel. So I hear so many people say, in Feige we trust. We were lied to and disinformed. We should never have trusted him. That number right there, that's not to his credit. But the last few years,
he should be booted out, and then bring Favreau back to run the MCU.
Yeah, we'll agree with that. So, Culture, what do you think, bud?
Well, first of all, this thing was dead. We know King Dynasty is probably not going to be made at all. Nope. In fact, I'm going to go out not on a limb and say we won't see King Dynasty. We won't see any more King. The only King we're going to see is the stuff that's already been shot, and it's kind of buried into a storyline. I think that's done. They just released the writer. They just released this director. Wonder Man is, correct me if I'm wrong, Andre, but that's 2 or 3 episodes in, and when they stopped shooting. And Marvel Spotlight, which is their throwaway brand that they created for garbage.
I'm very disappointed that that's even being concluded. I thought that thing was canceled, that it was never happening.
Yeah.
And then to find out that they already filmed 2-3 episodes. I mean, if there's a series that shouldn't proceed, it's that one. It's completely redundant. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't lead to anything. So why would you even continue with it? I mean, they should have scrapped the whole thing. It's just going to tarnish the Marvel brand more.
Yeah, I mean it's and it's being stated by a few people that are sourcing their information from other places that is going to pick up shooting again here in the next month in December.
Actually, I can think of one reason only why they would do it, and that is if Destin Daniel Cretton has some kind of personal affliction for it, that he cares deeply about it, he wants to see it through, and they right now are in the Destin Daniel Cretton business because of all the directors currently in their stable. And just think about this: all the directors that Marvel has worked with for the last 5 years, this is the most experienced, talented guy, apart from like the guy who did Black Panther. But he may not wanting to come back because he did 2 Black Panther movies for them. So Ryan Coogler may be burned out, because if history shows anything, any kind of like good MCU director, apart from James Gunn, they have 2 movies in them and then they burn out. That's what happens with all of them. So let's just assume that after the negative reaction to Black Panther 2, maybe Ryan Coogler ain't coming back for Black Panther 3. That means Destin Daniel Cretton is the strongest director that they have in their stable. We don't know how far along Shang-Chi Part 2 is. Maybe the only reason he would agree to even do that at some point down the line is if he got to do Wonder Man in between. I'm just speculating here. I don't know this, but that's the only reason that I could think that they would even do Wonder Man at this point, is because this guy has a personal investment in it. And if he doesn't get to do that, well, then screw Shang-Chi too. He'll just go off and do something else. He's a diverse director. He doesn't have to look long to get any other kind of offers in Hollywood. He's going to get them thrown after him. So probably is when he like, let me finish this or bye. And then they lose the strongest director that they have in their stable. Again, him being their strongest director, this does not speak well of all of their other directors.
No.
And it also speaks to their desperation and why they have to put this piece up right here. Because basically, they're just assured everything is fine. Please, that's why we put this thing up. He's still working with us. It's not his fault.
Yeah.
Kang sucks, but we don't blame him for it. That's kind of what they're saying here. Because to me, this is them admitting that Kang didn't work, and we're moving on. We're just going to stop talking about the Kang dynasty, and we simply won't bring it up anymore. And that Avengers movie is either going to be repurposed as something else, or they're just going to scrap it.
Well, I mean, they also slayed Captain America 4 into a complete rewrite and reshoot
9 months
ground up.
Yeah.
Delayed by 9 months.
Yeah. I mean, it's getting the full reshoots. You have the other associated projects there.
Well,
Shang-Chi, whatever, I don't care. Shang-Chi 2, it should never be made. It is a film that failed in its first iteration, did not turn a profit, lost money.
430 odd million worldwide, that.
Yeah, 430 worldwide box office on an easily disprovable $150 million budget. So,
in that movie's defense, though, they don't actually know what it would have made under normal circumstances, because it was released theatrically when the lockdowns weren't completely over and everyone was still freaking out. I mean, how badly that movie did at the box office is part of the reason why Scarlett Johansson's lawsuit just kind of went away. Because that just proved that, you know what, you didn't lose anything from us dropping Black Widow onto Disney Plus, because it would have just lost money in theaters. So that, just like Dune got an excuse for what it did in theaters because extenuating circumstances, Same thing with Shang-Chi. I do believe it would have underperformed under normal circumstances, but given that they weren't normal circumstances, we don't know that. And because of that, Marvel just have to carry on with the assumption that that movie would have been a hit. That is why they treat it as a hit in the media and stuff like that. Blatantly, it wasn't in terms of the box office, but it has an excuse for why it wasn't, meaning we have no data. Because we may think, and we're probably right, that it wouldn't have performed all that well. We can't know that.
Well,
It's
the
a movie
difference
that will be
between
exposed in part 2.
I'm going to push back on that just a little, Andre,
Yeah,
and I'll
go
tell
for
you
it.
why. That movie's only separated from its release date, which was September 3rd of 2021, from the release of No Way Home, No Come Home, right? And so that's just a few months of separation. It released the No Way Home, which is just a few months after this, released into only 36 additional theaters in total. Only 36 more theaters when it opened. And that cleared a $1.9 billion global box office. So at a time when we still had countries that weren't, out there seeing films, my pushback is there's only 36 more movies out, 36 more theaters available, and it still did rather well. I sure it can live on that excuse that 2.5 months of release time difference in the calendar may have made that much of a difference, but I just don't think so.
I submit I'm going to push back to your pushback.
Sure.
And say that I think those 2-3 months did make all the difference. Because you know what happened in those 2-3 months in the meantime? Omicron. That happened right between the two. And I'm going to be very careful with what I say here because I don't want anything to happen to Mr. H's channel. But when it came to the worldwide medical situation that was going on at the time, what ended it when one could fully go back to normality? It wasn't the medical treatment that was forced upon a large part of Western civilization. I hate to break it to anyone that's listening, but that thing did fuck all to end anything.
Right.
What made the difference was Omicron, because here was something that was that sounded like a transformer that freaked everyone out. But that is the thing which gave what you might refer to as immunity in very large groups. That is the thing when the medical establishment kind of had no choice but to say that now it's safe to go back to everything. That's what made the difference.
Okay, so
happened right in between that time frame.
Okay, well let's take another deep dive then, because between No Come Home and Shang-Chi, Eternals came out.
Oh yeah,
that fucking film,
what a
that
stinker.
bombed so hard.
Yeah, that was a movie that's told everyone watching the trailer, stay away. There's no reason to watch this.
I said, I mean, I look at those numbers. Eternals supposedly cost more than Shang-Chi. I think Shang-Chi budget's an entire lie, but that
could be. But I submit that Eternals is the worst movie Marvel ever made.
Right. In that film only made an opening Friday. That opening weekend, Eternals made $4 million less than Shang-Chi.
Yeah.
So
how did it perform compared to the Marvels?
Oh, that's a good question. Let's take a look.
Because you know what I think?
It did better than the Marvels, I'm pretty sure.
I think
the Marvels is the worst.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I think that movie, even in an alternate parallel universe where no lockdowns ever happened, where we just carried on as we always did with no virus of unknown origin ever hitting society, if we had just carried on as before, I think that the Eternals would have performed pretty much exactly the same as it did, because it actively put people off.
Well,
And from that, it also follows that since that movie bombed, and it was always going to bomb, and just a few weeks after, Spider-Man No Come Home was this big smash hit. It was always going to be, even in a normal situation, because by that time, so many people were over it, and it was widely known, even in America. And America was the last holdover at the time, because even before Omicron ever hit, like for instance in Norway, where I was at the time, we had already been completely back to normal for the better part of a year by that point. Omicron
that's
just
strange. I didn't, for whatever reason, I never worried about any of the things that were going on. I still
that's because you're educated and you have common sense. And many educated people don't have that, but you have both.
Yeah, let's real quick. You have 5 days in, and this is the question you asked, Andre. Eternals was sitting at 80.8 million. The Marvels is sitting at 51.7.
Those 80 million, I don't think there's any scenario under which the Eternals would have opened any higher than that, because it had a trailer that actively put audiences off always. This was a pure Kevin Feige production. Oh, and Victoria Alonso. It was a Feige Alonso production. It was a pure virtue signal from day one. But it was something there was no audience interest in seeing. It had the wrong director. They could have brought people into it if it had like the Jack Kirby visuals of Thor Ragnarok, but it didn't. It was just, it looked boring. It was colorless. I mean, it might as well have been in black and white. It had a dour and depressing trailer. Everything sucked about it. I think that it would never have made more than 80 million. Even in the prime of the, well, maybe if it had come out 5 years earlier, but that movie at that time, there's no way it would have made any more.
One last point: the Maternals on day 2 had eclipsed. It has more earnings at 54 million than the Marvels do at 51 on day 5.
Yeah,
that's how bad this movie is, folks.
Yeah, and the Eternals is part of the reason why the Marvels is doing so bad right now, because that one really strained the Marvel brand. I mean, between the Eternals and Thor Ragnarok, Thor Love and Thunder, and Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, between those 3 movies, a lot of damage was done. And of course, Disney Plus just compounded it.
What do you got there,
well,
Nick?
Time will tell whether this whole Destin Daniel Cretton business is a symptom of a much larger problem behind the scenes. I would probably say it is, with the fact that the writers have been changing hands on Kang Dynasty, etc. But it does remain to be seen. So it's interesting stuff nonetheless. We've got to shuffle on now.
Oh, Nick had a graphic.
I just wanted to show just something real quick. Like, so this is basically like the bar charts with the yellow lines being the budget of the films, or the so-called budget of the films. Here's the Marvels down here. Of course, it hasn't completed its run yet. They got the pandemic releases, but yeah, the Incredible Hulk movie, that's really been the lowest one since the first Iron Man movie. I don't even think the Marvels will hit that. And of course, they got the pandemic releases of the Eternals, Shang-Chi, and Black Widow. But I just wanted to kind of show that.
And also remember inflation in all of this.
Yeah. But also, that's probably not been updated for the latest figures that came out for Endgame and Infinity War as well, because they were much higher, remember, budget-wise.
Oh, yeah.
That would be interesting. But yeah, no, good. Let's shuffle on now.